Welcome back on Dynamo. Today I want to propose you a video about the review and the spoiler part about the happenings that we can find in the Brocherium saga with Moratti, Teclis, Belacor and Kragnos books. I want to remember you that there will be not in every of such releasing the events that are. So here I'll talk about the main events, what happened, some consequences and something that it's linked to the other parts and so on, but not everything that it's inside because it's quite rich and it's worth to read by yourself eventually. Still, there will be part of the background and some of the links that can interact between each other and so on, starting from Moratti and then moving on. So like you are reading them, so I suggest you to follow such step. So first Moratti, then Teclis, then Belacor and then Kragnos. And really, you can find a lot of information, but still, I suggest you to read the books themselves, because I think that they are really quite amazing and they are worth the reading, and eventually also to make some deeper thoughts with using, for example, Black Library books of the same area of age as releasing. So it's really quite intriguing, because this is going to link the previous Necroquakes, the events that we have found from the Soul Wars, the Maleportents and so on, and then the Necroquake, and then the Brocherians, and we'll see what to continue with. So I think that it's really quite intriguing part. So this is an intro that make you understand what I'm going to bring you. Still, I suggest you to continue to see such video, to see the parts that I explain about, and then seeing the other videos too, so that you can follow everything and continue to understand better this saga that I found amazing, so much that finally I have brought them together. So now we can begin. And the fourth book of the Brocherium saga of the Games Workshop. This is literally the turning point of all that we've seen in the previous three books, so Moratti, Teclis and Belacor, and there are quite a lot of things to see inside here. About the book itself, there is Kragnos, that it's amazing. I like such model. I don't think that I'll ever buy, but the artwork it's amazing. Here you can see around and the back. So we can find that this it's a nice way to combine everything that we've seen before at the same time, and it's something that now we open and see a bit better. So we can begin. Here we can see an amazing artwork of the Orcus against the Seraphon, and I really like them. I hope that in the future will be some of such type of model also as miniature. Amazing. Here we have this, that it's we can say an anticipation of what will happen in the beginning of the book itself, because it's a link of what happened, what we can say that happened in Belacor and then continue here. So it's quite nice. So it can be a good anticipation about. Here we have the contents, and here the main charters that are inside here, that almost all of them we have seen yet. Others are new, but quite nice anyway. And there are also some anticipation of some of the things that were suspended previously in the previous books that we've seen, and now they are completed. And here we can start with the part related about Alariel. Here we can see that Alariel it's a sort of self-sacrifice deity, because it talks always about sacrificing the self, sacrificing everything and so on to save and so on. So it's really not mocking herself, but a bit pity herself. But I like because here you make a lot of link to the old world, so Malleus, and before the old world was destroyed. So there are quite a lot of links together here that make you understand quite a lot better the background of what was before and now. So pay quite a lot of attention, because this it's a part of, I can say, recapturing part of the Giran realm. So it's amazing. Here this that it's a song that it can be really quite interesting to read, because they can give you a sort of anticipation or consolidation also of the things that we are seeing in the previous books, and we know about the background itself. And here about the liberation of Kragnos, with such amazing image that it's really a sort of background of Kragnos itself that we see better later in this book, because there is more about the background. But literally this you can find the main events related about the life of Kragnos itself. So everything it's spoiled here if you understand what they mean. So quite nice. And then we have this that it's about Exercis, that it's one of the cities of Gur, and there will be the main part about this book because there are quite a lot of things happening here, and they are really quite amazing ones. And here we can find a map about Gur, where we can find also here a lot of background related about the Drokur, the race where Kragnos come from. And so there are quite a lot of information if you go to see about this, because here if you make a sort of analysis of all the parts, you can find a lot of sites that bring you a lot of information. Here we can find this that it's related about an invasion about the army of Sinch to Exercis, and here we can really find something that it's a sort of precursor of what we'll see later about all the things that will happen to Exercis itself, because it's a sort of preparing the field to the next event, and so it's, even if it's not treated and really, I can say, deep in the background, it's really quite important as a first step of what happened in Exercis itself. And here we have this part that brings another problem, because even if you can't really associate to it, this violet color is associated to Slaanesh, and it's important because it's something that lately move subterranean, and it involves Slaanesh itself, because the righteous part that you can find and so on, that it's a bit extreme eventually, you'll find that it's really what it means extreme, so associated in that way to Slaanesh, and it involves even new characters that in some way we known from Morathi, but we associated, or better, I associated them to other things, because they were not so sure that they were those ones. You can really confund them, because we see a bit later about, but really here we can find that what are the, I can say, upsetting things that we've seen right before about Slaanesh, here step by step raise, because we can find that here it's important, because part of the armies of the city of Exercis, we can see that are made move away, or better float away, because the fleet that protect the seas of Exercis is not scared but annoyed so much that it leave the shores of Exercis itself. And it will be quite important later, this part, really, because you have a lot of things, and we know here some of the characters that will be one of the main parts of the details later of the happening and so on, that can be considered the main parts, and you can know them step by step along such pages, and I really like such thing. One more thing to notice about this, it's that it's related about being against the magic, so you could think about Sinch, it's related about the crystal, the mirrors, so it's another thing that you could associate it to Sinch itself. So they try to make you a sort of the range about the things. If you think you've seen that everything started with an invasion from the Sinch armies, so you can think that there is something other than this. But we'll find that it's quite intriguing how it developed. And we can start to see related something about the Seraphon, because when we can flip, we can find that there is something that make some of the characters that we've seen right now, that are these witch hunter, that are going to talk with the Seraphon themselves, and they are able to do so much that they are able to meet technically also with Lord Cloak, that has yet anticipated what it's going to happen. I want to remember you that the happening of Belako anticipated something of such events, so it's really something that interlace quite a lot between the different stories that we can see. So a lot of things, and quite intriguing. Moreover, here it's revealed something that finally it's not related about Sinch, but we see a bit later, and something that goes to see what are happening before, because we found that some claiming of the armies that were righteous were not true, because the one that was called as the instigator, even didn't know that they were doing that thing, so quite nice. And now finally we have the intervention about the scaven, because they interfere, they bring some really a lot of misshapes inside the excesses, but they're instigated by a certain chaotic divinity. And again, here you could think without any problem that it's Chinch, but there are some clues that it's not, even if we see better later. Here we can find that really there is a lot of background, really a lot of information that can start from here about excesses, about how everything works, about the scaven can be controlled in some way, even if not from the horned rat. So there are quite a lot of things that can be quite interesting. Moreover, because you have to understand that in excesses, they yet know that Kragnos and the Eorkurk's army is a vessel, not Kragnos himself, but the Orc army is a big one. It's coming to excesses, so this it can be quite disruptive, and it will be, so it can be quite interesting. Here we can find the intervention finally of the Knighted Chassos. We remember when they contacted the Slan and then went to see someone else? Yes, finally everything is going to be together, so much that if you read this you can find something quite intriguing, because the Knighted Chassos ask the help of the Hallowed Knights. Yes, they ask help, the Knighted Chassos, that usually they tend to be by themselves. It's quite intriguing how it's developing by itself, and really quite a lot of things to take notice. Here the events really develop quite a lot. But finally we can find here which ones are the, like I say, shadow masters about, because we can find that there are two new, I can say, call them in certain way divinities, because we have such ones that are these two. And I can anticipate you one thing: these are the elite daughters of Moratti, but are also the daughters of Slanesh. Because when in the book of Moratti was able to ascend to the godhood, and you could think that duality that we talked about in Moratti was related about Moratti itself and its shadow form, the alpha snake and so on. Instead there were these two. So duality in duality. It's really quite amazing, such one. But in a way we can find that everything that has been planned about the purging, about the magic and the mirrors and so on, were their own. Because we can find that one of such two ones, it's related about Slaanesh itself, because it's more really elite Slaanesh itself, and the other one it's more related about being a sort of Tzeentch, more idealistic, more thoughtful and so on. So there can be quite a lot of things to take notice. And then we move to the part related about Kragnos itself. So there will be quite a lot of things to notice. And here I suggest you to pay attention about such map, because in such map you can find all the information that you can find also later about what it's going to happen. Really, all the battles that are going to happen in Excesses, the main one related about Kragnos and so on, are here. Because what's happening, what is hiding them and so on, it's really full. Here it's completely, totally full of everything related about Kragnos. And it's worth to understand how it's happening. If you read about Kragnos and a bit of its story and so on, you can really find everything about Kragnos here. So a lot of things. It's really quite worth such thing. And instead here we can find the history of Kragnos itself. So the reason why Kragnos is Kragnos. And literally, I can't pity Kragnos, because its own behavior, it's caused what happened to itself. It's really, it can only claim that its opponent, its own opponent, because everything that happened to its own race and so on, it's happened because Kragnos itself. So okay, quite intriguing this one. It's really a concentrate of background that it's quite amazing, and really quite worth to understand a bit better what's going to happen, because here we can find that it's even improved the amount of background that you have. In these 4 pages you can understand completely what happened in the past, in the myth area, about Kragnos itself, and there are a lot of information to take notice, quite a lot. But you have to remember some ideas about the travel of Kragnos and why it goes to excesses. Because Kragnos had as main opponents the Shoggoths, and there is also the background that I talked about. It's really quite intriguing about that. But after that I solved that one, it made a sort of feud against the Dracotin, so the sons of Dracotin himself, and it has been imprisoned in part by Dracotin himself. And so one of the main opponents of Kragnos are these ones that are the sons of Dracotin. So in some way they are really quite related, so there will be a lot to think about such opponents. So it decided to come back to its own old empire. So it decided to move toward them. So its move and its rampage, it's quite intriguing. And it's a calling, because the Oruks and the other green ones transmitted in some way their knowledge about such old god beast. And it's quite amazing, because Kragnos itself, it was not so powerful. It became powerful after the offering and so on by the Oruks that bring him the stones of the Gur, that make it even more savage and stronger, their beliefs and sense, and other things. So it is full of things that re-empower itself, making it come back to its own form. And about its object, you can find here. And here you can find that Kragnos is completely interesting. Because if before we can find that Kragnos is at fault by itself, at the same time we can find that Kragnos is savage but also quite clever. And it's realized that its savageness sometimes can be brought aside and so on, but at the same time has some goals, and it's quite intriguing about such. So much that it's here we can find about the Oruks talking and thinking about Kragnos itself, if it's worth to follow or so on. So much that then we can find, for example, this and the clash against the giants, the mega gargants, and the races that will submit to Kragnos itself. And I like such imaging because it shows you the image of the army of Kragnos advances. I like such type of dinosaurs because it seems something that I have seen from some other trademarks, but quite nice. And I like this because it's the battle of the Gordruk against Kragnos. And really, you can find that Kragnos, it's not so invulnerable at the beginning, because it's still having to add all the mass, all the offering and so on, that make him, at the end of the travel, really come back to its own glory. But here you can find the nature of the Gur itself, because they are battling against each other, and at the end they even become ally. And finally we can move to the siege of Excessis, and there is quite a lot of intriguing things to talk about here. And here you have to prepare yourself to a mess, because it's completely a mess. We have Lord Coke that intervene and reinforce the shields for the invasion of Kragnos, that is save the time for some things. Here we can find really the meeting against each other of the armies, even if it's a bit later this part. And then we can find the oncoming hordes and the problems that it brings, because they are not suitable some things to make some efforts. Because the avant-garde of the Oruks, of the army of the Horde of Kragnos, it's the trolls, and they regenerate quite often, quite fast, and they are a problematic part, so much that there is the intervention of the Karak, and so they make some efforts, but the Mega Gigant make some battle against. It's really quite intriguing, because there is step by step about the siege, and you can find the mess that there is, because there are external parts that are brought in a mess. But when you think that they are trying to make the external part, there is the part about Kragnos that comes and break the walls. Literally, it make a breakage in the walls, and so what it was a sort of order in the defense line, break completely. But it's not all, because from inside you had yet the Skaven that were bringing some problems, but you have now, remember Slanesh? Yes, while there is the raging of the Kragnos from outside, but half outside, half inside, this is the court of the Slanesh that brings quite a lot of problems. So there is really a lot of things. Here there are the battles against the Stormcast Eternals with the sacrifice and so on. And not only the Exception arrive, but it has also the Astral Tempest that comes to bring help to the Exceptions. So it's really quite intriguing because it's a completely one against each other. And finally, it arrives Moratti, because it brings back the fleet that moved out, because there was a problem, in fact, that while there were the part about the siege of the land, there has been brought also the siege from the sea, but the sea was uncovered, because the fleet was made escape before from Slanesh, and now Moratti bring when the part of the army of Kragnos is bringing from the sea itself, and then Moratti with the fleet that destroy that army and finally bring help to the part of the land. Really, you have a lot of things to analyze. And while everything is happening inside the city, finally the two half divinities that were the sons of Moratti and Slanesh are the ones that are brought down. But it's really complicated because this multi-structure battle, it's a big siege, a big battle, so you have multi-front to take notice. We have the side about land, the side about the sea, the internal part that had problems, quite a lot of things that combine, and it's quite amazing. And really, here I think that it's something that it's quite fun, because we can find Moratti that mock Croak, literally, because it mocked Croak in the beginning, because it was the one that was late in the old world. Notice the wow. Then we have that it's Moratti idea to make a sort of bait to move Kragnos outside, and it's often self to do this. But it's quite intriguing because Kragnos know what is happening. But what Moratti show to Kragnos, it's something that makes Kragnos desire to go there, because it makes him that it goes against the Darkotin. Remember what I said before, that it's the enemies, final enemies of Kragnos. So it's really a decoy in a really great way, and it's amazing that way. And then here we have the part about the final. But first of thing, well, I want to show you one thing. Belacor, Teclis, Kragnos, Moratti. What are these? Are the books of the Broken Realm. So Moratti, Teclis, Belacor, and Kragnos. And I suggest you to read such ones, because you can find a lot of information. Here you can find the dialogue of the two half sons or daughters, as you want, of Slanesh and Moratti, that talk with Belacor, and you can perceive a lot of information about them. And while they are trying to mock each other, Belacor mock better quite a lot. Here we have Teclis, so a sort of ending of the Teclis book, and it's the dialogue of Teclis and Nagash. Okay, there is also Tyrion in the dialogue, but it's the two together, and you can really understand how much Teclis has lost in the battle against Nagash. And it's quite intriguing, because it makes you understand quite a lot more about the previous books, so it's quite amazing. Here we had the part about Kragnos that has moved out of the portal, the other part, so the bit worked, and it's destroying there. Out of the problems, for now, but who knows what will happen later, so it's quite intriguing. And here, something that is related about Moratti talking against the Council of Excesses. So it's really quite intriguing, because here you have a lot of information, because there is a sort of accusation against Moratti, because the falling of Evingard, something that happened in Moratti, as book of the Broken Realms. But we know, finally, and it's verified, the nature of the white dwarf that we have seen in Belacor. And all through these here and here, they talk about what happened there, because here it's still something that it's only suspected, it's not said the name itself, but here it's associated that white dwarf, that Gombrindal, it's Grun itself, and it's safe what it's this part, that he talk about the problems about making a sort of shifting, or better, breaking of the elves and the humans. Instead here it's put everything together. So there are a lot of information that there are inside here, because you can find some talking about Sigmar, you can find some talking about Nagash, some talking about Teklis, all the things that are quite intriguing about. I thought that it would be a bit more about Alariel, but it's okay. So here there are a lot of information. If you read this, you have to read multiple times, because each time that you read, you can find some more information about some link with the previous books and what can happen in the future. So quite amazing. Then we move to the part about the, I can say, images that are really quite nice to understand a sort of the battle that happened, and it's quite nice to see a bit better some of the models. For example, Kragnos, that it's amazing. The amount of detail that this model has are fantastic. Here we can find about the Sessa and Sinessa, that are the two half daughters, daughters of Slaanesh and Morat itself. Here we can find this that we have seen briefly in the part related about Alariel. Lord Korok with this model that it's fantastic, it's amazing. I don't have such model, but it's something that really wow. You can only say wow when you see this. It's amazing one. And then we had the part about the rules. About the rules, I want to remember one thing. It's that these rules are not anymore valid. You can use them because they are referred about the previous edition about Age of Sigmar. So it's about words. Instead, we have the third edition, at least when I register and publishing this book, this video, that it's related about Dominion. So the third edition. But it doesn't mean that you can't use these things, because you can see, for example, the images that can be useful. The rules about the campaign can be still used in some way. So you can eventually use them, making update or so on, so that you can use adapting. You can have a suggestion. The description about the things can be quite useful, for example, for your own desire to make something peculiar or so on. So it's something that I suggest you to see. The battle plans you can use again, even if it's not the same edition. You can use the ideas and then apply in different way, or personalize the campaign so that you can use later with the scenes. So there are a lot of things that can be really quite intriguing and useful. Even if it's not actual, you can use a referral for some duel that you want to recreate and so on. There are a lot of things that this part can be useful still, so don't worry too much, because there are quite a lot of amazing parts, and really you can find a lot of different options. Also, the battle tome updates are something that technically are completely useless, because there's been released new battle tome, or the rules are updated and outdated in some way. So it's not sure that what you will find here can be useful also later, but there are the part about the background that are here that are amazing, because these parts can be used to know better some details that you can use for, or understand better also the book itself, or the books itself, the story of the Broken Realms themselves, and analyzing the things you can see how it's evolved, because this part, this type, can be a suggestion, for example, to create your own armies later, because maybe you want to use such things to create with new rules the same composition of the army, for example. So there are really a lot of things that can be quite interesting, really, and these images are always amazing to watch out. And really you have a lot of things, because you have the images about the painting and so on, the models that can be really useful. And so there are, you can also personalize, for example, the accessories. If you want to personalize an army, you can see here, for example, to have something that it's related about them, and so know a bit better about them. For example, these ones are the two charters that battle against the two daughters of Morat and Slaanesh. And it's nice because you have the refer about the models themselves eventually if you want, and you are not able to find them the models themselves, you can recreate in some way. But at the same time, you can understand how they are equipped, so you can in the future, for example, create a chart that call them, for example, associated to them. So there are a lot of things that can be quite useful to your option. So it's nice. Also about the scam, you have some things. I want to remember you that participated in the battle. And so there are really a lot of things to talk about. Here again, the code that we've seen before, and then the hand here. So what to say about such book? I think that it's amazing. It's perfectly the ending of the first three books, so Morati, Teclis, and Belacor. And it brings all the links that were there and mesh them together. You really have to have them because this complete saga is quite amazing. I needed a lot of time to be able to find all these books because I didn't want them at the beginning, but at the end they are amazing because the campaign itself it's really structured. It's not simple. You can see a lot of betrayal, a lot of plans that doesn't work, but at the same time work in some way. So there are a lot information. I didn't even told you about everything that happened because there are still the skies that are from Belacor that works. There are still the problems related about the invasion of Nagash on Haish and the problems that Teklis has. There is the part about Alariel that reconquer part of Kiran that was under Nargol. So there are a lot of things, and you have to understand that this is a way that make even more interesting all such happenings, because this video is to give you a sight of what is the background that it's inside such books, but at the same time it's a way to understand how many things happened, and even try to make you desiring to make yourself find about such, because there are the ways. It's really quite intriguing. I don't want to talk too much about such happenings because I think that it's worth to read, understand, make the links. It's the fun of such, but at the same time make you understand what happened, at least in the big ideas. Is something that it's completely intriguing because it's something like a spoiler that make you desire even for more, even than only have a spoiler what happens and I'm okay. So I'm glad. Anyway, from Dino Mode it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.